Hey everyone, Garrett McLaughlin here, and in the video today, what I want to cover is different ways to improve your hip hinge. So one exercise that I like with a lot of people, what's called a Romanian deadlift or hip hinge. We can do this as simple as using body weight and just teaching someone to move through the hip joint. A lot of value in stabilizing, creating stability and stiffness through the core. As you move through the hips, we get a little bit of stretching and flexibility into the hamstrings as you go down, but good way to teach core stability and moving through the hips. What I find oftentimes is it can be a surprisingly hard position and movement to get into for a lot of people, even though it looks quite simple. It could take 2 to 4 weeks really to perfect. So there are different exercise regressions we can go through or ways we can enhance that movement and give people the proper feedback for them to do it more successfully. First one, what I like is just using a wall. So if I step forward anywhere from like 6 to 8 inches from the wall, small bend in the knees, and I'm trying to tell that person to keep the knees relatively constant as they bend and then move through the hips. So I'm leading with the hips as the butt goes back. You can see my shins are staying relatively vertical. My hips touch the wall, my butt touches the wall, and I can drive my hips forward to stand. So just having that feedback of hinge through the hips, butt reaches back while shins stay vertical can work for a lot of people. Other people that I see oftentimes as they do that motion, instead of hinging into the hips and moving the hips, keeping the knees relatively constant in that 10, 15, 20 degree of knee flexion, they tend to bend, right? Yes, we're keeping the spine neutral. We're not moving through the spine, but rather than using the hips to create that motion, it becomes more of an equal hip and knee motion. This is more similar to like you think traditional deadlift, knees and hips are going to move. Romanian deadlift and hip hinge, a little bit more hip focused and hip dominant. So what we can do in that instance is turn around here, face the wall, place the foam roller right to my shin here. So just using one foam roller generally works well as opposed to two. Now this foam roller is going to prevent me from, I can't really bend into my knee. So I need to get into that position first, small bend of the knee, shin is vertical, and then I can reinforce that hip hinge pattern from there. The foam roller is preventing me from bending more into my knee because my knee cannot move forward. So it becomes specifically a hip motion. One thing you'll commonly see on these, if people really have difficulty, they have tightness or just lack of control through the hips, instead of coming down here, you'll commonly see compensation, the hard time getting back in the hips, the spine wants to move more. So it tends to highlight and magnify some of those issues and the reasons why they cannot perform a hip hinge. The last way, just to teach, and I think that this one is very important when you get to the top of that motion. So one thing we try to teach is as someone hinges through the hips, small bend of the knees, more hip dominant, hips drive forward to stand. It's not a lower back motion. A lot of times in the days after teaching someone how to hip hinge, they'll say, wow, yeah, that was a good back exercise. My back was really sore the next day through my lower back. It's like, okay, it's possible as they learn that they could feel some lower back soreness, but are they using their lower back too much and losing that engagement through the core? So we call this anti-extension core stability. It's exhale, rib cage down, abs engaged, breathing and stabilization through that midsection. So as you drive up and through, you're using the glutes to drive the hips forward, you're standing tall, you're not losing that stiffness through the anterior core, because if you do, what happens is we start to use the lower back, we drive the hips forward, and then it becomes lumbar extension. So what I like to do is have a band set up. And we always need to be thinking about the core engagement here. We can't just use the band and think that's going to solve this problem. Your dead bug variations, other core stability exercises are extremely helpful here. Band is teaching me to drive forward through the hips. I want to simultaneously drive the hips forward as I'm pulling that rib cage down and maintaining tension through the core. So still hinging into the hips. Band slowly pulls me back. I feel where my motion should be. My hips, not my lower back, because the band gives me some feedback. Abs engage, rib cage down, hips go forward, engage glutes, abs, right, through here and here. That keeps me tall at the end and prevents me from opening up and using my lower back. Just to see a few repetitions, band pulls you back, abs stay engaged, hips go forward, and then I can make this more of a specifically hip dominant motion. So I'm not overusing the lower back, I'm not bending too far on the knees, I can really teach that hip how to hinge. So that's a couple different regressions or ways we provide people feedback to improve that hip hinge pattern. Extremely valuable motion to learn, especially those of you, again, in the trying to lift and strength training, history of low back pain, how to engage, stabilize, move through the hips to spare the lower back has a lot of value regardless of what you're doing in life.